Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you may be. And as soon as I put the camera on, Froggy comes to my throat. And I don't mean Jennifer, no, not that Froggy. Another little frog comes to my throat. This is By Hook or By Needles, and I am Sam, and the title of this video I haven't completely decided on yet, so I'm not sure what it says, but hopefully it will be an indication of what I'm about to talk about. Before I learnt to crochet, when I was probably around 8 or 9, I could say I can't knit. I cannot crochet. I used to say, I cannot crochet, I cannot knit, I cannot sew. This is when I was about 7 or 8. I could say these things, and they would be factual, because I hadn't learnt. But then I learnt to crochet, and I learnt to knit, and my mother taught me how to do embroidery, which then took me on to, taught myself how to do cross stitching, and then I taught myself how to knit sew a pattern, with material and all that sort of thing. So I did all those things. I learned from people teaching me, I learned from reading it in books, I learned not from videos because they didn't exist in those days, but I learned from, mostly reading patterns and looking at patterns and looking at pictures in books. Now, we all have different ways we learn. Some of us learn visually. We like to see something being done. Some of us like to learn by reading how something is done. And then there's those of us who like to just jump in and try and do it, make mistakes, figure them out, redo it, and all the rest of it. I'm more of the third person. I find reading things to be a little bit, ho-hum, especially if it's something very detailed. So why am I talking about this? Well, I'll tell you why I'm talking about this. As a content creator, it is very difficult to produce content that everybody is going to be content with, because people put limits on themselves. Now, notice what I said there. People put limits on themselves. Those are the people that this video is referring to. I'm not referring to those people who have had life put limits on them. So I am not talking about people with medical issues that put limits on them, or people with intellectual limits that put limits on their abilities, or people with neurological issues like aphasia and that sort of thing. I'm not talking about those people. Those people have genuine limits, but most of those people work around those limits, and they do try to find ways to continue. Case in point, we've got Marsha Lee, who is, I believe, black-blind, and yet she crochets. And no, she doesn't knit, she crochets. We've got Froggy, who is macular degeneration blind. She does have peripheral vision, slightly. That will decrease over the years. But she still crochets. She still reads patterns. She still writes patterns. She still knits as well. There are people who might try and say that ADHD, autism, etc. are intellectual disabilities which limit them. Yeah, to a degree I would say that is correct, but as a trained speech pathologist, I also know that people with ADHD and autism can still do anything that someone without ADHD and autism can do. Now that will obviously vary depending on the spectrum they are on, and the spectrum being mildly autistic, high functioning, to non-verbal, non-responsive autism. This end is not going to be able to find ways necessarily to do things that they cannot do. I hope I'm making sense. So I'm not here to sort of say that if you've got a genuine issue, whether it be physically or mentally, that this video is for you. It's not specifically for those people, because they have genuine physical, mental, neurological, whatever issues stopping them or making it very difficult for them to do things. As a speech pathologist, it was my job to teach children with autism to read. It was my job to teach adults who had just had a stroke how to re-speak if they'd lost the ability to speak. So we know, or I know from experience, that people who have suffered a stroke can regain much of their abilities back again. In fact, a close friend has just recently had a stroke, and she's now crocheting again. So it can come back. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and so you need to want to do something for you to be able to do it. Is basically what the theory or what is behind this video. So, as a content creator, what I do when I do a tutorial for a stitch, or whether it be knitting or crocheting, I show you. I show you how to do the stitch. Watch me do this stitch. That's for the people who are visual learners. I now, I think it started this month, I now write the pattern out for the stitch, and I put that on the YouTube page or my Facebook page, so people can go and they can read how to do the stitch. Also with the crochet, I have the crochet graph, for those who are pictorial learners, and they can look at that and go, okay, that's how we do the stitch. I haven't done that yet for knitting. I am going to start that probably not until July, because I've done my tutorials right now right up until the end of June, so I don't really want to redo any of my knitting tutorials. But coming in July onwards, I'm hoping to incorporate the knitting charts as well into my knitting tutorials. So I try and combat the three ways, and whilst I'm obviously showing someone how to do it, I'm also verbalizing, telling them how to do it. But I get a lot of comments and emails saying, well, I can't do crochet graphs. Can't you? You can't read them? Really? Now, as I say, there are people who cannot read them physically, see them, so they cannot read them. I know Jennifer from Froggy Winter Knitting has actually said that she can see the chart, but the actual figures are like always distorted. So how can she read it? No, of course she can't. So I'm not talking about people with visual impairments. I'm talking about people who can read written words, who can see the chart clearly, will say, I can't do that. I can't follow charts. Or I can't read patterns. You know what? You can. When I hear someone say, I can't anything, and it doesn't matter whether it's knitting, crocheting, or anything else in the world, I hear lots of different things. I hear, I don't want to. And that's fine. Just say, I don't want to learn how to read a chart. I don't want to learn how to read a pattern. Don't say I can't. Some people will say, well, I don't have the skills. And that is the crux of it, really, for anything. I say I can't ride a bike. I've tried. I had one training wheel, and that was my issue, because I used to learn to ride a bike on a road, a pathway that was tilted like that. So when the training wheel was on this side, I was fine. But coming back the other way and the training wheel on this side, I'd tip over. I had I don't know whether it was a balance issue or what it was. I found it very difficult to learn to ride a bike, and I gave up. I decided I'm not going to learn to ride a bike. So, I do still say I can't ride a bike. I probably could if I really tried. I mean, it's just one of those skills I never learnt. So, yeah, some people say I don't have that skill. And that's fine. A lot of us don't have the skills to do a lot of things. I don't have the skills to ride a bike. I could learn them, possibly. But I think then I have other physical limitations with my body movement that would probably prevent me from actually riding a bike. So, there's whole different issues there. So, this is what I hear when people say I can't, and it doesn't matter what they're referring to. Many people say I can't because they don't have the time, and that's another valid reason. I don't have the time to learn a new skill right now. I don't have the time to learn how to read a pattern or learn how to read a chart. And I get that, and some people will just fast forward that part of my video when I'm trying to explain how to read the chart. But also, I challenge anybody out there, if you're sitting and crocheting and you have the time to actually crochet, try and incorporate into that time a chart. Incorporate because most charts will come with the written instructions. Go from the written instructions and look at the chart at the same time for the same row while you're physically doing it, and you are there, you're learning the skill. So although you say you don't have the time, you might not have as much time as you need or want to have to learn the skill, because it will take away from your crochet, and I understand that. If you really love to crochet and knit, that's all you want to do. You just want to pick up and knit and crochet, and learning a skill to read a chart is just not on your radar at the moment, and that's fine as well. But don't say I can't. And I say it myself. I catch myself all the time saying, I can't do that, or I can't do this. And a lot of the time I can't. It's because it's a physical issue with me. So it's a medical issue. And, I physically can't do certain things. Like if I fall onto the floor, I physically cannot get myself up. So, there are things, but sometimes I say I can't. And I think, oh no, I really wish I hadn't said that, because I probably could if I tried. And that's all this is all about, trying and stopping this limitations we put on ourselves by saying I can't do blah 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 blah. Instead, let's go a little bit deeper and look at why we are saying I can't do blah blah blah. What have I got? some people say I can't, and I hear I don't need to. Another probably valid. I don't need to learn how to read charts because, and I'm just using charts as an example, so please, anybody out there who doesn't read charts, don't think this is a personal attack. Or you might even say, I can't read patterns because I don't need to. You know, people who can't read a pattern say, well, I've got a chart, so I don't need to learn how to read a pattern. Or people who don't read charts can say, well, I've got a pattern, I don't need to learn how to read charts. And people who say, I don't need to learn how to read a chart or a pattern because I've got a tutorial video. And once again, you know, it's perfectly fine to say that and to be that way. But instead of saying, I cannot read a pattern or I cannot read a chart, therefore I only watch video tutorials, say, I don't have the skills or I do not want to learn. I think by being honest with ourselves, whether it's because you don't have time, you don't want to, you know, or maybe it might even come down to something as simple as you are afraid that you will not understand when you are taught something. And that's quite a valid reason to, you know, say I can't. But I just hate I hate how we limit ourselves all the time, especially when something that can bring us so much joy, like our crafts. You know, I think I once recently said to somebody, oh, I can't do diamond painting. Well, to be perfectly honest, I've never actually tried. I'm just assuming that my eyesight would not allow me to do diamond painting, and that I have a neurological this is me pretending, but I have a neurological tick sometimes that sort of does that, and I can just see me scattering diamonds everywhere. So there's more of a physical reason behind that. And so instead of me saying I can't do diamond paintings, I probably should say, you know, I'm not able to because of a neurological tick that I sometimes have. And that's perfectly acceptable, obviously. You know, I think, you know, and I'm saying this for myself just as much as trying to sort of get others to see the limitations they're putting on themselves. We all need to sort of stop limiting our abilities or our skills by saying we can't do that. What else? Okay. Another thing I hear when people say, I can't, I hear, I don't like it that way. Okay. There's probably something beneath that. You've got to ask yourself, well, why don't you like it that way? Is it because you don't have the skill? Is it because you're afraid that you won't be able to learn the skill? Is it that you're afraid that if we're looking stupid, we are all so afraid of looking stupid. I know I'm always, more so in my younger years than now. Now I just know I look stupid a lot of the time, so I just but I think, you know, especially when we're younger and when we're learning something, one of our biggest problems with learning can be that we're afraid of looking stupid to the person teaching us. And this is where the world of YouTube is great. I can't see you. I can't see you trying and possibly failing. I can't see you trying and I can't see your failed attempts. So no one's going to be laughing at you. And if anyone does laugh at you for trying and failing, I'd question, you know, what their abilities are like. I'd be saying, oh, so you show me how to do it then. You know, of course that can always backfire because they might know how to do it. But if you think back to when you were young, we used to say, I can't knit, I can't crochet, I can't cook, I can't ride a bike, I can't drive a car, I can't go out after a certain time. And all, we had all these limitations. Some were parental limitations, some were physical limitations. You can't drive a car when you're 7, you can't reach the pedals. Some of them were just because we hadn't been taught, and or because we were not physically developed or mentally developed enough, or physically developed enough to do it, because there is a lot of eye-hand coordination involved in doing crochet and or knitting or anything else. What as a content creator, I try and put all these aspects in, and I don't hate it. I get disappointed, I guess, that people come back sometimes and say, I can't do the charts, or I can't read the pattern. And it's not a disappointment in the person so much. It's a disappointment in myself that I have somehow failed. If I haven't been able to, in my video, impart the skill of how to read the crochet chart, for example, for this stitch that I'm doing, and only for the stitch that I am doing, I feel like I've failed. I failed you and I failed me. And the disappointment is with me. And I feel badly that I haven't given you the tools for the skills to learn how to read a chart or a pattern. So we all need, we all need to stop limiting ourselves. Case in point, I knit. When I knit continental style. I knit English style. I do not knit continental. Why don't I knit continental? I can knit continental. My tension's just not very good when I knit continental. So if I'm out and about somewhere and I'm knitting and someone comes up to me and says, you should be knitting continental. They don't say that now because I never go out and about. But people used to come up to me, strangers, you should be knitting continental. And I used to really get quite annoyed because I just thought, they are assuming that I have never tried. They are assuming that I'm knitting this way because I've never learnt how to do it. I know how to knit continental. I sort of have the skill on how to knit continental for the knitting stitch. I haven't quite mastered the flicking forward and doing the purl stitch in continental. My issue with continental, and the reason why I don't use it all the time, is because my tension is really, really bad. I mean, when you're pushing your needles along, like your stitches along your needle like that, you've got a tension problem and you need to do something about it. So that's why I don't knit continental. I don't say I can't knit continental, because I can. I just don't, because of tension issues and because of skill issues. I haven't yet learnt the full skills to do it. Similarly, I now don't say I can't do pencil hold for my crochet hook, because I can. And I've actually done it on videos to show people, especially in my really early, in my very early knitting and crochet tutorials where I'm teaching beginners. I will say to them, okay, this is the alternative way that, or the other major alternative way that people crochet or people knit. And I will show them a few stitches or even a full row, but explain that I don't do it that way because I am either not comfortable with that way because I didn't learn that way, or I don't do it that way because of my tension, and so on and so forth. I could just say I can't do it, but that's really limiting my abilities. That's really putting a ceiling to what I can do. So I'd rather now, I try, and I do still say I can't. Like I say, I'm always saying I can't and pulling myself up on it. So now I sort of, I have learnt how to do pencil hold, and to show people that, look, there are people out there who knit, who crochet this way, and I'll explain I don't do it this way because I personally find it awkward. I can do some simple stitches. I find once I've done my loop over, like for a double crochet, for example, or a treble or something, that's where I start sort of having real trouble sort of manoeuvring. And then I've got my whole arm going and shoulder going and wrists going, and that's not good for me either physically. So, and that will cause physical pain. So what I have always said in my knitting and crocheting tutorials is simply, if something causes you pain the way you are doing it, and that includes the way I'm teaching it, find an alternative. There are alternatives out there. Learn a different way. Hold the yarn a way that's more comfortable for you or feels more natural for you. Hold the hook that's more away that's more uncomfortable or natural for you. If continental is more comfortable for you, knit continentally. There are other forms of knitting. My mum used to put the yarn around her neck sometimes and then have a pin on her top, and the yarn would go through the safety pin to her work. So it would thread, and it would always be forward, and she would have to move it back and forth with her finger, whether she was doing a knitting stitch or a purl stitch. So that, and nothing that's called Portuguese knitting, I think. But there's lots of ways to do different things. I'm going to try and wrap this up because I don't want it to become sort of... It's not a lecture. I'm not trying to say to people, you've got to change everything you do, or you've got to change the way you say things or do things. I'm just asking or suggesting that, we look at why we are saying I can't. What is the underlying reason that we are saying I cannot do this? And like I say, it's not just for knitting and crochet, it's for anything in life. Why are we saying that? And then we'll write a list of reasons. Why am I saying I can't cook Italian? I don't know, I'm making something up now because I can't cook Italian. But, why am I saying that? And I think the further you dig down, sometimes you'll find it might be a physical issue. You can't stand for that long at a hot plate. You can't physically, lift those pots and pans and chop and all that sort of thing because you have issues with your hands, you have arthritis or whatever. So sometimes you might find it's a physical issue, sometimes you might find it's a mental issue where you're like, I really just don't want to do this. And when I say mental issue, I don't mean it's an intellectual learning issue. I mean I just don't want to do it. But I don't want to say that I don't want to do it because I don't want to, once again, I'm afraid of looking lazy or sounding lazy. But some people just don't want to do something, and that's fine. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But know within yourself why you're not doing something. Know within yourself why there is a limit there. Not just so that you can overcome it. Only overcome it if you want to. Only find a way around it if you want to. But just be more, I guess, less limiting. Don't limit yourself, because we are all so capable of doing so much in our lives. And we've got to stop putting limits on ourselves and not knowing why. Okay, I'm back. I had to cut a whole chunk off the end of that because that would it was going on for a bit. So I just want to finish up by saying that be everything you can be. You know, don't set ceilings for yourself. Burst through those ceilings. You know, don't limit yourself or your abilities or your skills. And, you know, I once told my autistic son once came to me and told when he was a little boy, and he said, "Mum, I can't be this, that, or the other." You know, and I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I'm autistic." And I said, No. I said, do not put limitations on yourself because of what your inabilities are or what your labels are. I said, you've got a label of autism. Yes, it does put limits on your abilities in some respects, but you can work around them. You can use them in a different way. You just have to learn in a different way, do things in a different way, but you can still do all the things you want to do. Never let autism be a crutch. Let it be a stepping stool or step ladder. So yeah, it's a bit of a deep and meaningful chat, but I really wanted to just get that out there. So I hope you don't mind, and I hope you stay to the end and indulged me. Let's see who stayed to the end. If you did, no, I won't do that. I was going to say type a certain word in the comments, but no, I won't do that to you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.